Democracy thrives on transparency. That's why we document Irish political voices as they are, complete, unedited, and accessible to all. Subscribe to join us in strengthening public discourse.
Minister, it's time for the government to put an end to the Irish Central Bank facilitating the sale of Israel's war bonds throughout the European Union. There is simply no limit to the cruelty Israel inflicts on the people of Gaza. Not content with perpetrating 19 months of genocide, massacring tens of thousands of Palestinians, mostly children, women and the elderly, Israel imposes a blockade on Gaza. The supply of food and vital humanitarian aid has been cut off to a people hanging on for dear life. The children of Gaza are being starved, exposed to disease and left to perish. And we've seen these poor, frightened children on our screens, skin and bone. Their sunken faces and wide eyes looking out into the world for answers to this simple question: who will help us? Who will stop this? This is not a famine. This is starvation forced upon an impoverished refugee population with nowhere to go and no way out. This is the weaponization of starvation against children, against the sick, against the elderly. The genocidal Israeli regime is sending a murderous message to the Palestinians. If the airstrikes don't get you, if the IDF death squads don't get you, if rampant disease doesn't get you, then starvation will. It is shameful that the Irish state and government would have any hand, act or part in facilitating this genocide, but that is exactly what it is doing by allowing the Irish Central Bank to trade in Israeli war bonds, permitting the Irish Central Bank to act as a gateway for the sale of these bonds throughout the European Union. The government is allowing Ireland to play a role in the financing of this genocide. And Israel hides nothing about these bonds. They're very clear that these bonds are being used to fund its military onslaught in Gaza, and yet government allows this to continue. A year ago this very week, the government recognised the state of Palestine, sending a message to the world that Ireland stands with the people of Palestine and Gaza. However, in the time since, this government has stood back and, with eyes open, allowed Ireland to be used as a financial staging post by Israel to fund their atrocities. And there is something perverse about saying to a people faced with genocide that you recognise them, that you stand with them, while at the same time facilitating funding the very weapons that are being used to slaughter their children. How do you possibly reconcile yourself with such a treacherous contradiction? It shouldn't be lost on anyone that you do this all the while and at the same time you abandon the Occupied Territories Bill and when you move to dismantle Ireland's neutrality. So let me be clear. Allowing the Irish Central Bank to continue to deal in to facilitate the sale of Israeli war bonds is an endorsement of genocide. It makes Ireland, in my view, complicit. It flies in the face of the ordinary people of Ireland who have marched, protested, campaigned, and with everything they have stood up for the rights of Palestinians to live and live free. Irish people know our history. The history of colonisation, occupation, dispossession and starvation, and they simply will not tolerate this government allowing the Irish Central Bank to facilitate the raising of funds for Israel's genocidal regime. Israel's war machine has some of the most sophisticated weaponry in the world, but the greatest weapon in its arsenal is the impunity gifted to it by the international community. That mealy-mouthed pattern of condemnation but no more, deploring but ultimately standing back and doing nothing. The greatest shield Israel has is the refusal of the international community to impose sanctions. They continue to make excuses. They hide behind so-called complexities as it intensifies its genocide and continues to brutally and brazenly violate international law. And be very clear that there is nothing complex about genocide, nothing complex about the mass slaughter of children, and there is nothing complex either about the fact that these war bonds are used to fund the atrocity of our times. And your government can put a stop to Ireland's involvement right now. That's what you should do. That's what you must do. Because in the end, you cannot say that you stand against genocide while facilitating the funding of that same genocide.
Deputy Clerk.
Liked what you saw?